Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter where you are in the world joining us today. It is February 26th. I'm not sure what weekly update we're up to now, but it's been a lot now running. I'm Kaitie Zhee, and I'm joined with David Johnston. How
Hey
are you?
guys.
David is in Barbados at the moment. And David, I think you're like the Carmen Sandiego, the male that.
Where in the world is David Johnston? Yes, just here for a board meeting, and so yeah, it's pretty awesome, and love visiting. So yeah, it's nice to get out to this part of the world.
You must have a bag ready by your door at all times for all weather.
Of course, absolutely. I've been experimenting with small packing. I've got it like in an ever smaller containers, so it's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So really cool this week with PegNet as it's moving along. Things are growing week over week in terms of the community size and the awareness. And I don't know if you saw, PegNet tweeted about it took 127 days for them to cross 100 million in transactions and conversions on the PegNet system. And then in 15 days, it doubled that. And I think that's the beautiful part about open source is that you can't unring that bell. So once things start to catch on, it just goes from there to the next phase, and people keep moving it without end in sight, it seems right now.
Yeah, no, it's very much a testament to how easy it is to convert value inside of PegNet. We see people really starting to move substantial volumes. I saw the other day, it for a little while crossed $1 million an hour in conversions going through the system. So yeah, and along that line, actually donating to a developer that's working on an integration between PegNet and TradingView. So TradingView is a popular community for traders to write scripts and implementations that they can run their trading strategies on exchanges. So having the ability for people to take that huge library of scripts they already have from TradingView and run those strategies in PegNet, I think would be pretty awesome. I know the developer's ginning up sort of a basic interface and will allow people to take what they've done in TradingView and connect it into PegNet. So hoping to release that fairly soon, basically in like a test or alpha kind of stage where people can use it and try it out. And the developers adding a bunch of new features. First, he wanted just to connect when you have an alert from TradingView that your strategy is being triggered, and for those alerts to push into PegNet and take some action, like, okay, now convert PUSD to PETH, right, or whatever, right? So taking all that information and feeding it into PegNet, and now he's working on the other side, which is, okay, after I've taken these actions in PegNet, now I want to withdraw to an exchange and do some trade there. So sort of connecting and creating this connective tissue between the two different worlds.
Very cool. So what can the community expect and how can they get involved if they want to be part of this testing for the trader part of our community in PegNet?
Sure. Jump into the Discord. I'm going to post the link in there as soon as the test version is ready, hopefully later this week or early next. And so jump into Discord. I'll put that probably in the trading channel. I might also put it in the technical channel since it's sort of under testing. And what we need people to do is just give it a try, right? And, I'm sure we could send around some peg to people that want to try it and just set it up and see if they can hook up their TradingView strategies or interface with the PegNet tool. And so, yeah, that would be awesome. Happy to, put out some rewards or bounties for that and get people involved.
Very, very cool. I've also heard some chatter going around about potential trading competition coming up as well. And I'm sure as I get more information on that, I can share that. We can share that with everybody. So that's really, really cool. And it also ties in with, I think, the video that PegNet's coming out with. And yeah, I'm excited about the trading. That's how I got started in crypto initially and started to learn about token economics and all of that stuff. And I was in the private trading groups and getting around, and a lot of them are now influencers. So I'll be excited to share that with them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and it's what we need to do, right? Because there are 3 million people on TradingView. I mean, it's a massive trading community. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is connect together those existing communities and tools into sort of the superpowers that PegNet has, right? Extremely low cost conversions, no liquidity limits, no slippage inside the network. Like those are capabilities people aren't used to, and they could potentially build sort of new strategies that could, do trades more often because they don't have as high fees to worry about, right? Just like I wrote in the article about Ready Trader One, it's like, wow, you could start with a very small amount of money and not get eaten by trades, right? So it kind of lowers the bar for really anybody to participate, or even for the professional guys. They're paying 0.25%, 0.5% to an OTC every time they want to rebalance their portfolio. I mean, that really adds up over a year. So, we're talking about saving huge amounts of money on fees and effectively being able to do all these frictionless conversions. So yeah, I think that's really exciting. Those are the kind of things we need to do.
I think that's what it's hard to say early adopters of PegNet, because PegNet is still early, but a lot of the community that has been there watching the milestones, roll out one by one. Mm-hmm. One of the things that they're still super enthusiastic about is that PegNet is offering this, fundamentally new approach to finance and technology that didn't exist. And that's what I meant by, you can't unring that bell, and these things take time, Right. Amazon was not built in a day. Rome was not built in a day. Bitcoin didn't happen overnight, to where it's at today. And it's continuing to grow for the foreseeable future. And that's what I see with PegNet, is providing that capability and kind of paving that path forward in cryptocurrency and DeFi, stablecoins, that has not been fulfilled yet without the collateral, without the reserve.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's effectively something totally new. And, but there's all this existing infrastructure we can hook it into, right? So quick update. I know the developers at ETH Denver that volunteered to work on the integrations for Uniswap and Bancor and all of that are getting pretty close. I think they've rolled out a test implementation of those integrations. So still getting those up and running, but they're pretty close on, I think, ChainLink, Uniswap, Bancor, and there's a few others that they're working on. So sort of all those liquidity pools, all those tools that give you instant ability to swap tokens or effectively sort of incentivize a lot of the liquidity in the space. I think that's really important, especially for pegged assets, that we get those connected in. So, I think that's really cool.
I absolutely agree. And I think we discussed this last week on the update, was that's kind of how as a community you can organically, expedite your growth, right? Is by linking into these other existing communities and then, providing this win-win dynamic. Help me understand, for say Uniswap or Bancor, what does that integration look like? What is that intrinsic value on both sides?
Well, a lot of them are smart contracts that are built on Ethereum. So this would be using the ERC20 flavor of the PegNet assets. And so let's say you wanted to do swaps between PUSD and ETH, for example. That's something Uniswap would allow. So if you have enough people that are putting PUSD in that contract, then you've got a lot more liquidity and ease of moving in and out of that asset. That's the goal of a lot of these projects, is to reward people for providing that liquidity to the network. So this is important outside of the PegNet itself, right? So inside the PegNet itself, you have virtually no limit. If you add $1 million of liquidity, you have $1 million of liquidity, right? You're just rebalancing your own portfolio inside of PegNet. But once you move outside of PegNet and you want to, work with those assets on a traditional exchange, you run into slippage, you run into liquidity limits. And so the more the community hooks into these tools, the more we can sort of address those limits.
So to put it out into the universe, what other kind of projects are out there right now that have an identifiable opportunity with PegNet?
An identifiable opportunity. I'd say it's really
Or
anybody.
what profile are they?
Profile. I'd probably go with groups that are in Ethereum and have sort of a lot of the DNA for connecting to DeFi, right? It's people that can use what PegNet offers, and PegNet offers a lot of stablecoins that didn't exist before. So I think it's lending groups. I think it's people offering yield. If they need stablecoins as part of their process, then PegNet is a natural fit. I think longer term, we're going to see more payments and stuff like that. But in the shorter term, it's going to be a lot of these DeFi type applications.
Really, really cool. Also, I know you mentioned that you're finalizing an article on staking. So that's an interesting topic that I've heard over some time now in Discord that I see people chatting about. You want to touch on what that article is about and what the community should expect with this?
Yeah, so staking emerged as a way of how do you reward people for helping with different network functions outside of proof of work, right? And I think for us, proof of work is really critical because it gets us a fully distributed way of securing the oracles, right? But there also needs to be a balance where you reward, let's say, the arbitrageurs that are doing important functions in the system to balance the price of pAssets on exchanges. Okay, that is real work. It requires real expertise. It is not easy. It requires programs and people and a lot of work, right? So, okay, let's think about taking that 5,000 peg that today is rewarded for arbitrage, but it's sort of done it in an indirect way, right? It's people doing conversions from pAssets into peg, right? So it's not a strict reward today. Really, it costs something, right? You had to have put up a certain amount of pAssets, and you are converting those pAssets into peg at the market price, right? So today that 5,000 is available, but it's not really a staking reward. It's a reward for conversions. And so the thought in the article is to simply switch from a conversion model to a staking reward model. So instead of converting those pAssets into peg, they would do the same function, the same arbitrage function, right? They'd be converting peg into pAssets. They're holding whatever they want, right? PBTC, PETH, and they do that conversion from PETH to peg. And instead of taking and burning the pAsset that they're using, it returns it to them. And they get their proportional peg. So they're getting their reward as a real reward. Just like the miners had to put up electricity and everything else, and they didn't get the right to convert some of their money into peg. They got a reward. It's the block reward, right? It's the 5,000 that are set aside for the miners. So I like this because it seems to balance the system, right? You have a reward for arbitrageurs and you have a reward for miners. They're both providing an important function. And this effectively strengthens the reward for the arbitrageurs, which right now is sort of like an indirect reward and still costs them something from their pAssets, right? So now it wouldn't cost something from their pAssets. So it's a stronger reward for arbitrage, and will hopefully really encourage people to increase their arbitrage.
So where and when does this come into play for PegNet in the community?
So, there's been a lot of discussion of it. Everything in Discord has been extremely positive. People like the idea. They want to see more arbitrage, right? Because they want to see the tightening of the bands between the reference price and the price on the exchanges. Right now, there's typically sort of a lot of loose correlation between the prices, and it takes a while for it to get back to the reference price. So people want to see more arbitragers join the network. It's like, okay, well, let's strengthen the reward for arbitragers, right? And so everybody's like, yes, we need to do that. That makes a lot of sense. And from a technical perspective, I like it because it's really simple. It's just a matter of, switching from being conversions to rewards, but it's all the same actions that people were already taking. I also like that it doesn't change any of the economics. It doesn't change the supply curve. It doesn't change any of what sort of people have come to expect about how Peg has this predictable supply, right? So it's leveraging sort of the pieces what we already had there and just sort of strengthens it. So the next step is for, we continue to get this great positive response, is for a developer to go ahead and do an implementation and then basically propose it as a formal PegNet improvement proposal. Included maybe in March, we'll see. Depends on when a developer puts it together and pushes it out as a software update. But that's sort of, we're trying to build consensus in the community around what should we do first. And there's a lot of things like, okay, I like this approach, but we don't want people to flood the network with transactions. Okay, well, then they should do this conversion, let's say once a day, instead of having to do it every 10 minutes. And at the end of 24 hours, they get their PEG and they get their pAssets back, right? And so that would be like, how do we implement this in a smart way that is still relatively easy to do, but doesn't have some unintended side effects? So sort of flushing out all those details and then just getting that implemented is the biggest thing.
If I didn't know any better, I would say that you're in crypto, because there's a lot of notifications going on in your background.
constant dings and notifications all the time.
It doesn't end. So does this kind of overlap or correlate or lend benefit timing wise with the trading view?
I think so. I mean, it gives people a reward for having assets. It gives people a reward for having pAssets, right? And it strengthens that reason to do the arbitrage. Part of what we want to see is people are converting PEG into pAssets, and eventually that's going to get us below the predicted supply curve. And one of the things that we've talked about implementing in the past is this buffer idea. Like, okay, when PEG conversions go below the expected supply, how do we use that as another arbitrage tool to keep pAssets at their right price, right? So I've been thinking about that too. I haven't written sort of a formal article or anything yet, but I think it would be really fascinating to maybe leverage the miners as a means of doing that, because what you want is you want that buffer available for when there's a big move in the market, right? These things aren't smooth. It's like, oh, there's a big bear move, lots more demand for stable coins, right? Or, oh, there's a big bull move, people are getting out of their stable coins. And so you want this buffer so that you can react when those things happen. So the idea is, what I was thinking through is, well, if you just open the buffer to anybody, then if people just want more PEG, they're just going to buy more PEG, but maybe they don't do the arbitrage function, right? Which is what you really want. And so the question is, okay, how do you know somebody's aligned with the protocol and really wants to do the arbitrage function? What about the miners? What about using their proof of work as an authorization that says, yes, this person, is currently, in the top 20 or whatever, criteria you pick, and, they get access to some of that buffer so they can help with the closing of those gaps when we see those in the market. So that's sort of a longer term thing, probably, more than we can get into today, but it's sort of this road that we're on, right? Is we got mining going, we got conversions going, we got basic arbitrage going. Then it's like, okay, how do we improve arbitrage? Okay, make the reward stronger. Okay, we're getting close to that supply curve. How do we use that buffer to, strengthen the system? So it's like one by one, how do we systematically improve the system where we think we can get better and better results over time?
This is absolutely fascinating stuff. I'm clearly not a developer, but I would imagine if I were a developer, this would, light up all sorts of buttons for me that I would just have to get involved in. What I value from the community and from your leadership as well in the community is having this new voting and discussion and bounty kind of organizational structure to how do we get more developers contributing, their time and their work towards strengthening and improving and continuing to expand upon PegNet, which,
Yep.
So, if you're a developer watching this, or if you know of a developer who should learn about PegNet, I encourage them, please share this video, share the gospel about PegNet. I think that's, what is it? If you're a best friend, you share PegNet. A good friend told you about Bitcoin, a fake friend told you about Ripple, and a best friend told you about PegNet. So, anyway, so very cool stuff. I don't have much more on my end. I'll be excited to hear how things unravel and unfold, and hopefully help share that gospel with Bancor, Uniswap, ChainLink. I know we have some community members working on some content to get pushed out and get those thoughts shared.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll see everybody in Discord, and I'll definitely post the article fairly soon, and also hopefully that test version of the trading integration. I'll pass that along when the developer sends that out to the community. So
very cool. And Discord is always open. So if you have other talents that you want to contribute or get involved, speak up. I'm sure we can find a way to get people aligned and get them working on it.
Yeah, pegnet.org/chat.
Yeah.
The Discord.
Linked below.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, David. Well, enjoy Barbados. Don't get too much sun. I'm jealous. But all right, until next week, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.